Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to So You're Thinking About Being a Chief of Staff. My name is Leigh Felton. This is obviously where we talk about all things Chief of Staff. For those who are joining through the Chief link, if you could please join through either the LinkedIn Live or the YouTube channel, that would be great. Today, we have a lot of things to talk about. I'm waiting for my co-host my guest, I should say, my guest to join us, where we're going to dive into how to use generative AI tools for the chief of staff role. So this is something that you're not going to want to miss out on because, I mean, I have been working in AI technologies for gosh, it's going on 6 years now, and it's just amazing the progress of technologies that have come to market and the assistance that these technologies can have in our roles. Now, be very, very clear, as people have said that AI and these technologies, gosh, are they going to replace my role? And so I have my own opinions on that. We can get into it later, but I think that there are significant areas of opportunity that can be used in using these technologies. So I like to start with a good morning to know that people are out there, to know that you are here, that you've joined, that you're listening. So in addition to, if anybody wants to just say hello, which I love. Feel free to just say hello. It would also be great for our question this morning, only because when Stefan joins, I want to make sure that we have enough time to actually do the demos and go through all of the content. But I would love to just hear from you and see, what do you want to hear? And so, not necessarily in this session, but even as we think about future sessions, what is it that you are interested in? And is there something particular as you think about something that we can talk about on this podcast in the future? Is there something specific that you would like to know more about? So, as everybody is, working their way into the room and really just starting to say hi. Hi there, Mary. Hi from Boston. Hi, LinkedIn user. Love to know where people are calling from. Toronto, love Canada. So everybody's working their way into the room, would love to just hear, are there particular things when it relates to the chief of staff role, when it relates to, whether you're in the role, looking at potentially getting into a role, wanting to find out more about the chief of staff role, or even if you are an executive, a CEO, a recruiter who is looking to hire for the role, what are you interested in? What would be the most helpful for you as we go through these conversations? And so, anything that you want to throw out there, feel free to throw it out there. I will say that the majority of the questions that I get really align to three main viewpoints. And let me turn my phone down just because I don't want, in the recording, I don't want to get a lot of bings and pings. But let me just say, if you are considering the chief of staff role and you really want to know, okay, number one, what is a chief of staff role? Isn't that, is that a COO actually? Is that the same thing as a COO? Is that the same thing as an EA? What exactly is the difference between a chief of staff and some of these other roles? So that is the number one question that I get, is what actually is a chief of staff role, and how do you as a chief of staff differentiate yourself from other roles? And even as an executive, how do you consider this role compared to other roles? And so that's the number one question. The number two question that I get is always around the rhythm of the business. And, how do you start thinking about strategizing, setting up, running? What are the foundational pieces for a rhythm of the business, and what does that actually mean to the business? And so just the deep dive on how to consider a rhythm of the business or rhythm of operations in the scheme of the chief of staff role. And a lot of people make the early on mistake of taking what they call a calendar, so a set of meetings that's okay. These are the meetings that we have coming up, and calling that a rhythm of the business. And so a lot of the things where I get questions is actually, how do you think about and consider a true rhythm of the business program? The last is, and this one is one of those things that it depends on the actual chief of staff role, and it depends on the organization that you're in, but it's around OKRs, KPIs, the overall strategy, results, impact. How, as a chief of staff, how do you show impact and ROI in the role? So how, because a lot of the things that we do are through other lines of business and for other lines of business. So if the work that we're doing is improving sales, does that credit really go to marketing, to the sales, to the engineering team? If the work that we're doing improves the flow of information across the organization, those processes, does that go within each of the teams? And so it's, how do you actually, in your role as a chief of staff, how do you demonstrate that you are, making a worthwhile impact, and how do you quantify it? So those are the three questions that I get um, about the chief of staff role. But are there, in it, are those things that you want to hear about? Are those the things that resonate the most with you? Or or are there other things that you feel you would love to hear more about in this type of session? So it would be great for those of you who are joining in, if you have something that you want to hear about, that you want to talk about, let me hear from you. Let me hear from you. So Mary says that she's considering a career transition, and she wants to learn more about what the chief of staff role actually is. Yes. And that probably goes the best in my point number one, which is exactly, how do I consider a chief of staff? And Mary, I'm not sure if you already have a copy of Unlocking Your Inner Chief of Staff. So I did write a book specifically about the chief of staff role and how to consider it. So, part of it is a job description in terms of, these are the core functions of a chief of staff, but other things go into, what shouldn't an executive level chief of staff be? What shouldn't an executive level chief of staff do? But it also goes into things that you should consider about non-negotiables. And so my first um, recommendation on the executive level, of understanding what the executive level chief of staff role is, would be for you to check out the book. And then um, sorry, I'm multitasking at the same time. I'm trying to get Stefan the actual link to this, because he is a little lost. I do have some previous podcasts as well that go into the chief of staff role. And so, primarily how I think about the chief of staff role is that it is a line of business for running the executive office and for supporting the processes and operational excellence of the organization. So if you think about what moves the company forward, how you align across processes, resources, operational excellence, to me, the core of the chief of staff role, the executive, and we always talk about the executive level chief of staff on this podcast, but the core of the chief of staff role is pretty much, to me, running and supporting the business, the operational forward progress of the business, to enable your CEO, your executive, to actually show up as a strategic leader, as a thought leader, in looking at what do we need to do long term to make sure that we're growing, that we're staying relevant, and that we are contributing to the impact of our employees. And so, to me, the chief of staff, an executive level chief of staff, is that partner with the CEO, is that partner with the executive that is over the organization and saying, you can focus on the strategy, on our goal, mission, vision, where we're leading the organization, and diving into what we need to do from that perspective in terms of just running the business and making sure that we're getting things going and that we're keeping things going, and that by the time we get to the end of our fiscal year, we're not surprised if we didn't hit our goals. We're not surprised because we had checkpoints and conversations and readjustments along the way to make sure that we are either on track, or sometimes it happens we have to reset expectations because we're not going to hit those objectives, and so we need to make sure along the way that there's no surprises. And so, to me, as I truly think about it at a very, very high level, you think about the core of an executive level chief of staff. It is to allow that CEO, that executive, to have the freedom to really focus on running and leading the company rather than having to do all of the operational pieces that's required in. So let's see what else we have. We have a number of questions that are coming through, and we're getting halfway through, so I'm not sure if Stefan is going to make it today. So we'll have to reschedule the conversation about generative AI programs and how to best utilize those in the chief of staff role. So what else do we have? LinkedIn user. Yes, especially more about the value of prior executive role experience in this role. Is that a value or not? I often see the role as one of a high performing junior talent versus a more senior role. You have those. You have those. Just like any position, even if you take your CXO positions, a CXO, a CMO, for instance, chief marketing officer, in a company that has, 40 people, you have a chief marketing officer, is going to have a different level of expertise and experience than a company that has 10,000 people. So I would say the chief of staff role is no different. There are all types of chiefs of staff. And I would never blanket say that a chief of staff is never an executive role. For instance, to me, the chief of staff really, really should be able, and I've said this before, an executive level chief of staff should be able to step in temporarily to any of your C-suite roles. Now, there's going to be some exceptions as you think about legal, for instance, but even from a CFO, CMO, chief product, all of those things, an executive level, even the CEO, an executive level chief of staff should have the executive presence, maturity, business know-how in order to, with a high performing team, should be able to step in temporarily to lead those lines of business as you are looking to backfill or replace other executive teams. So no, I would never call an executive level chief of staff a junior talent, or you do have those positions. There are some times where you have chiefs of staff that are on rotational assignments, and so they are like high performing individuals in various units of the business. They're high performing. It's good for them to see how an executive office is run. It's good for them to have engagement with executive leaders and across the entire business, and to have that experience. And then they roll back out into a separate line of business once they've done their 2-year, 1.5-year, 3-year rotation of duty. So that's a rotational chief of staff. I don't always talk about a rotational chief of staff only because a lot of roles these days for rotational chiefs of staff, typically those are taken from within the organization. And so I don't typically talk about the rotational chief of staff more than the executive level, career chief of staff who are looking for having these roles as part of their long-term career goal. And yes, I consider myself an executive. I consider myself a peer with every member of the senior leadership team. And so I do consider the chief of staff role a CXO position. And most of the time it's the lowest paid CXO position, but it should be on par with other executive roles in terms of pay, in terms of expectation. And if you're hiring a more junior person for the role, then the expectations should be set accordingly. A lot of times, those individuals are more catchers and doers than they are thinkers and drivers and strategizers. And so it's also going to depend on what the organization needs. If the organization needs someone to come in as an executive line of business owner to be a chief of staff and to make sure that the rhythm and the processes across the business are operating and that your business is on track to deliver, then that's an executive chief of staff. If your organization instead needs someone who can catch tactical action items from the leadership team, catch those items, drive it, then bring it back, then I would say that is definitely not an executive level chief of staff. And so you should know who you are. What are you? What do you offer? And there are roles out there that will meet every position on that spectrum. And I've also been contacted for people that I say, this is not a chief of staff role, is it? This is, if you're asking me to do calendar management and you're asking me to arrange travel, that is not an executive level chief of staff. So I know we have a lot more questions. I appreciate everybody, and continue in the chat to please put in what are you interested in hearing about when it comes to chief of staff. And I will try to for the next month, because we hold these sessions every other week, I will try to make sure to fit those conversations in. But I am very, very excited to welcome Stefan to the stage. He has made it. Stefan, welcome. Thanks. Sorry for the confusion. I know you had
It's
joined
okay.
links, and but we made it work.
Yeah, that's okay. Thanks so much for doing this. I was at the other link, but I saw what you did. Great. You just
Okay, so
now.
why don't you just take a moment? I've already kind of given some context as to what we're going to, and we'll have to bring you back because we have 12 minutes left in this
Want to jump
particular
into it?
session. And so maybe we'll do something special, because I think the amount of content and conversation we can talk about when it comes to programs that are generative AI type applications, there's lots of conversations we can have about that and how it supplements various roles, especially the chief of staff role. So I will bring you back. So just wanted to let the audience know that we're not going to rush through this conversation and try to get all of the details in this conversation. And also, let's not do the demos like we normally do, Stefan. We're not going to do demos, but instead, let's just have a conversation about the generative AI technologies and really how they are impacting business executive, business administrative roles, which are the ones that perform the operational tasks, the communications, etc. So why don't you just take a moment, first introduce yourself to everybody so they know who they're talking to.
Hey, everybody. I'm Stefan. This is interesting looking at it like this because I don't see anyone but you, but that's good. That's good. I'm Stefan. I've been in some type of tech for a long time, usually some type of trending tech. I've traveled the globe doing a lot of different types of connection. I was involved with faith-based ministries, and now in a lot of future tech where the metaverse meets AI, the ethics behind it, and just some of the thought that's leading this proliferation of new tools. I looked this morning and 16,600 new tools for AI to teach us to do new stuff. They're just rolling out by the minute. And we have lots to say about that. sort of be careful, know which ones we're getting into, but it is packed with kind of like tinsel everywhere to grab your eye. Let me get this, let me get that. But choosing wisely what tool to use is very, very important.
No, and I appreciate that. In one of the conversations, Michelle is joining us here today, and she said that she is in Clubhouse. And so, for those of you who aren't a member of Clubhouse, Stefan hosts a room. What is the room called? It's Welcome to Chat GPT or
ChatGPT for beginners and
Chat
AI.
GPT.
Yeah, yeah.
Chat GPT and AI for beginners. So if you're a member of Clubhouse, make sure to check that out. There's some great conversations that happen in that room. I did join you a couple of weeks ago,
Well,
and
that was a
we had
powerful
that
room.
conversation went everywhere, right?
It did. It did. Well, hey, I got something to say about that. The reason is because AI is going everywhere. So the fact that we can do so much at our fingertips now, I can sit here and I can make a video just by saying, make a video about blankety blank. So we've been able to sort of speak things into existence now, and that didn't exist before. And the way it connects on an executive level is we're seeing a lot more people are learning these tools, and you're able to pull out business plans and strategies and executive summaries and charts. You name it, you can do it very simply. So content creation has kind of gone through the roof. And I'll say this too. This is just the beginning. This is sort of a text-based, text to pictures, text to video. But the next step is multimodal. We'll just speak something into existence. And right now, normally I have my phone here. I would just talk in a conversational way to GPT, and I'm just sitting around talking, and it's talking back, no buttons or anything. And at the same time, it's taking notes, transcribing everything that's said. I can say at the end, now put all that stuff in order, and it'll do it.
And are you just using Chat GPT? And we know that there's the free version. There's
Yeah.
Chat GPT 3.5, which is the free version that people have
Mhm.
access to. But you can also do a subscription to
Mhm.
Chat GPT 4. So
Yeah.
what exactly are you using? What do you find to be the best tool for the work that you do?
So to be honest, ChatGPT 4 is 4.5 is very good. It's $20 a month. I pay for it. And really quick, everybody, Perplexity is very good. That's sort of a backup one that I use because it cites all your sources and everything. So that's perplexity.ai. But ChatGPT is my main thing. And here's the reason: whether you have a paid for one or not, now you can hit this thing called Explore, and everybody and their sister and brother are creating GPTs. So generative pre-trained transformers, people are speaking these into existence and saying, hey, make me one about blankety blank. My business is, here's all my PDF files and everything from my business. Put all this into one GPT that you can now put on your website, and right in the corner of your website, you now have a virtual assistant. And the reason this is so important is we're not just sort of relegated to only Chat GPT. We have all the iterations now that everybody has created.
And I'm curious for the audience. And so as we continue our conversation, I'm going to ask a question to the audience. Does this sound exciting to you? Or on the contrary, is this a little scary for you? So as you think about, so we're here talking about a role that does a lot of content creation, that does a lot of, generating plans and reports and processes. So does this sound exciting to you, or to my audience, is it kind of scary to think, can this actually replace whatever it is that the value that I bring to the organization? So I'm going to ask the same question to you, Stefan. So based on, and I have used it a lot as well, and so I have some thoughts and opinions, but want to hear from you. What are your thoughts of this? Is this going to replace jobs?
Um, Sure. Yeah, I hate to say it, but sure, it's obvious. And I don't think there's anyone who's in this space right now who realizes it can be a good thing that jobs are revamped. But I think of it as augmenting what we do, not replacing. So the more we learn these skills, we're not turning back. We're never going back to writing with a pencil or using a calculator or a phone with a cord or anything like that. Because we have a device, that's sort of the conduit that all of this flows through. So we don't have a choice because it's here. It makes everything we do a lot simpler. So we don't have a choice. But I like the assisted intelligence. Call it that if you
And
want,
you're
or
absolutely right about that. It's here.
yeah, or
It's
augmented
here.
intelligence.
We
Yeah.
most definitely, in my opinion, and it's funny because I see a lot of people in the chat window saying both. I always say that that's cheating. Of course, if I do these surveys on LinkedIn and I try to ask some kind of compelling question each week. And my survey this week was specifically about products like generative AI. And if you have any concern, they're here to stay. But if you have any concerns about these AI technologies, what would your concern be? And
Mhm.
the first was you had to select between the biases and
Yeah.
perpetuating more biases and stereotypes across society
Mhm.
that relate to fairness. The
Mhm.
second was around job displacement. If you felt
Mhm.
that these technologies could actually displace and just going to put people out of work. The third option was privacy protections and
Mhm.
risks on
Mhm.
security.
Mhm.
And then the fourth was, you know what? I actually don't have any concerns at all.
Mhm.
So there was a very, very small percent of people that said, I have no concerns. I had asked the individuals who had said they had no concerns, I had asked them to share with the rest of us why they had
Yeah,
zero
help me with that one.
concerns about AI. That piqued my interest. Is like, I really was not expecting anyone to choose that fourth option as they did.
Mhm.
Yeah, that one kind of blew me away. But
Mhm.
yeah, I do try to make it so it's like, of course, it's both,
Mhm.
but it's difficult when we have to say this is. If I had to choose one, I had to choose whether or not I'm excited about it, and I think that this is.
Lee, I think your picture went out, and I don't know if people can still hear me or not, but it feels like her picture has gone out. And if you can still hear me, Perplexity is great. I'm sure she'll be back in a second. And I'll just throw this one out there as well. Poe.com is a great resource. It has a lot of these chat bots. Okay, there you go. You got it.
Isn't that nice when you just get kicked out of your own podcast? Thank you very much. Hopefully, you were keeping them
I
company
tried.
while.
Yeah, yes, yeah. I threw out a
Yeah.
couple of
So yeah.
more
So
ideas.
all these things going on. So what else? What other advice would you give, Stefan?
Yeah. So number one, Poe.com has a whole lot of resources there. I would use that.
I
But
don't
I
know what's
want
going
to
on.
Okay, if you can't hear me, I see you fine. And I don't know if everybody can hear me, but Poe.com is a great one to go to. It's a great
It's
resource.
just ignore my issues. I'm having some connection issues. But if you can go ahead and just tell them what other advice, that would be great.
Yeah, I will. Okay. Poe.com. If you're doing a website, look at Mixo.io. It's an incredible
Can
website
you
builder.
guys?
Okay, now your mic has gone out. Um, so I'll keep on going. Mixo.io. Can you ask them if they can hear me, Lee? Okay, anyway, Mixo.io is tremendous. Durable, Durable.co is an extraordinary website builder. And I think I want to really advise people, you want to look at ChatGPT in your phone. If you have ChatGPT, you go into settings, you scroll down to voice, and you're going to see a voice conversation that you can just start and really have information flowing in a different way. Lee, can we hear you now?
I have no idea.
Now
But
we
like
got
I like I said, I have no idea what's going on. I think I have like 50 people in the house all taking up the internet bandwidth. But
I threw out some
can
more
you go ahead?
ideas too. Yeah.
I was gonna say we're out of time, but if you can take the last minute, I want to let you go ahead and close this session. Go ahead and just give some ideas to the audience on how they can best utilize these tools. I know when it comes to what prompts, like becoming a prompt expert, is
Mhm.
a significant aspect of it. So if you can just go
Yeah.
ahead and share, I think that would be appreciated.
Yeah. So here's a simple one. If you go to, I'm going to put them out there, Flow GPT, FLOWGPT.com. They have a lot of instructions and helps with prompts there. And prompts, I just sort of make them as clear and detailed as possible. or I make them as simple as possible, depending on what it is that you're building. Also, I have a website. It's primeprompts.com. Primeprompts.com. Whole bunch of resources in there that'll help you to get to different places. Um, I mentioned Hey Pi Poe. Here's one that's going to blow your mind. It's called Gamma, GAMMA .app. It will blow your mind when you watch and see what a simple idea can do in building a spreadsheet, a website, a PowerPoint presentation instantly. So you name it.
Stefan, like I said, this is just a tip of the
Yeah.
iceberg of
Oh yeah.
what we're going to get into. So I'm most definitely will coordinate, but and maybe even extend a session where what I find the most interesting and exciting is when we can get hands on
Yeah.
showing people.
I'm telling you, I have my screen share already. When people watch it, it just blows your mind every single time. So when you're ready for that, I'm happy to do it.
Yep, I was gonna say we're gonna bring you back, and when we can do it. My apologies to everybody about the connections, but I hope you got the information in this brief amount of time, some helpful tips and tools and information that can, just as you think about this chief of staff role and what it possibly means for you. I will go through. There's some questions that have been asked earlier, and I will plan to go through today, tomorrow, and get additional questions answered. So go ahead and continue to add those to the chat, and I will make sure that if you have questions about the chief of staff role, this is your opportunity to ask. So thank you so much for joining. We're at time. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. Happy to connect, and I hope you have a beautiful, beautiful weekend. Take care and see you in 2 weeks. Bye.